Hi, it's Rhonda here again from Funky Freaks. Today we have a mini granny square project, really nice easy one for beginners. We had a look at a granny square blanket with a basic granny stitch. This time we're going to be looking at a hot pad for your kitchen pans, and this is made of cotton. It's worked up in 2 rounds. As you can see, you have 9 squares to make up this hot pad and a border which is made up in two rounds. So let's have a look. This is the cotton that I'm using. It's quite a thick cotton. I have 2 different colours. I want my centre mini granny square in the centre of my hot pad to sort of have 2 colours, so that's why I've chosen 2 colours today. Recommends a 5mm hook, but I'm going to be using a 4mm hook today because I like a slightly sort of tighter stitch when I'm working. That's the yarn there. So we're going to need a hook. As I said, I'm going to be using a 4mm hook. This has an ergonomic handle because I find sometimes working with crochet, as I'm a tight crocheter, it can be a bit troublesome on my hands. So for the ergonomic handle is quite nice to work with. Darning needle that is going to fit through my thick cotton yarn, and a pair of scissors. Okay, so I've made up already these squares, but I'll link to this one. This is the video that we did a couple of days ago, and although this shows 2 rounds, the video itself works up quite a number of rounds for a mini blanket for a child. But I'll add the link here so you can refresh. So just as a start, we're going to have a look at a magic ring as one option for starting. So I'm going to wrap my yarn around my finger twice with the working yarn held between my last 2 fingers. Then I'm going to slip the hook underneath those 2 loops and pull through my working yarn underneath those loops on my finger. Just pull that up a little bit so I have a loop on my hook, and then I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to pull through my working yarn through that loop, and that's a magic ring. And to start the project you would then chain 3. That's how the pattern begins, and that chain 3 would become your first double crochet. Alternatively, you could make a chain ring or a chain loop. So you would make a slip knot like so, and then place your slip knot on the end of your hook. Just tighten that up a little bit, and then I'm going to chain 4 here. Now this is just an example in acrylic yarn that we did for the baby blanket a couple of days ago for the basic granny square there. If I was doing this in cotton, I'd probably do 5 chain, to be honest. Then take your hook and slip stitch into that very first or the very last chain stitch, and then chain 3. And you're left with a very tiny space in which to put your first or your second double crochet in. First double crochet was your chain 3. Okay, so we're going to start off the mini granny square. So here's the link again, but this is the start of the granny square. I've chained 3 into my magic ring, which classes as a first double crochet. Then I'm going to add another double crochet here, so I have 2 double crochet together. Then I'm going to chain 2 for my corner and make another double crochet. We need 1 more double crochet after this, so yarn over your hook, insert your hook into the middle of your loop, pull a piece of yarn through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that's your first corner made. I like to separate my corners with a chain, so make 1 chain and then another 2 double crochet. There's the first and the second, then your chain 2 for your corner space, and then another 2 double crochet. Yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and there's your second. Again, make 1 more chain stitch to separate each of the corners. I've just tightened this up a little bit, makes it a bit easier. Sometimes that loop can get a bit big. So chain 1 after you've completed that corner, and then another 2 double crochet. This one, and 2, then chain 2, and another 2 double crochet to complete that 3rd corner. Okay, we're our last corner now, so we will need to chain 1 and repeat the process. 2 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochet. And then remember, chain 1 after this to separate your corner spaces. So chain 1, and we're going to slip stitch into the top of the chain 3 that's classed as your first double crochet. So slip stitch into that, and I'm going to pull the slip stitch up a little bit so it's not too tight when we come back round to it at the second round. Slip stitch across to the next stitch, again pull up a little bit so it's not so tight, and then slip stitch into the corner, ready for our second and final round of the mini granny square. There we go, and I've chained 3 just ready for the next round. I'm going to pull the yarn up. Now you could do this exactly the same if you made a chain circle to work into. You could do the same thing. If you're working over that tail yarn, you could just pull that tail yarn up and it would work exactly the same as a magic ring. Here we go. That's really cute. Little squares like that can make really nifty projects as well. There's the 2 slip stitches that you can see on the side here as well. They look slightly bigger than the others, but once you work your second round into those, you won't notice that at all. So we have our chain 3, which acts as our first double crochet. We need 2 in there, then a chain 2, and then another 2 double crochet. So there's our second, then chain 2, and then 2 more. Then we need to work the sides, and to do this you're going to work a double crochet into each of the previous double crochets that made up your corners. Okay, so you have 4 of those there. You're not going to worry about that chain stitch in the middle. So there's our first double crochet. It's really close to the corner, so just be careful that you don't miss it. Count your stitches if need be. That's 2. Skip over that chain stitch that's there and work into that top of the double crochet. That's the 3rd one. I'm going to switch over to the blue cotton now, just to complete the rest of this round. Here we go. So just as we did before, we finished the corner. We're putting double crochets into each of the double crochet stitches along the side. That's 2, 3, 4. You'll probably notice the difference in how I'm working with this yarn too. It is certainly a much firmer yarn to work with, and sometimes the yarn can split a little bit too, so you have to be careful of that. So there's my 3rd corner. So it's a really easy granny square to make because you're just repeating the corner patterns and you're repeating the sides. I'm just pulling that over a little bit because that first double crochet is really close to the corner. So 4 along this side. And then we'll look at completing our last corner before we work our way back to where we started from. So 2 double crochets in the corner, 2 chain, 2 double crochet, and again I'm just pulling that first double crochet over a little bit so that I don't miss it. Just keep an eye on that stitch there. Yep, there it is. Okay, and our last 4. So the first 2 will be relatively easy, and then you'll come to the slip stitches that you made in the first round. So as long as you've kept those slip stitches slightly looser, then you shouldn't have too many problems. Even with cotton, I do tend to still feel that that's a bit tight, so I probably could have done that a little bit looser, to be honest with you. And then that's our 4th double crochet in here. And the link that I gave you for the mini granny square for the baby blanket, we just kept slip stitching across to the corner and we made another round. But we're going to stop here. We only need 2 rounds. So I'm going to just join the 2 stitches together, the first and the last stitch together. I'm going to come from the back of my work and I'm going to find that top chain stitch from the original chain 3. I'm going to insert my hook from the back of that chain stitch, and then I'm going to pull up my working loop and pull that right through, sort of slip stitch that through if you like, pull that through there, and that pulls the loop to the back of the work. Insert your hook again and take your working yarn and pull your working yarn through, and then just tighten that up a little bit. Then you can snip your yarn and weave in your ends. I like to weave in my ends for each of the squares as I go. That way it doesn't feel like it's quite a chore when it comes to putting all the squares together. So there we have it. It's quite cute, but we only need the 2 rows, but we need 9 of them. So that's my last one, and we'll look at the next step. Okay, so now we need to sew. We'll sew the short ends first and then these long ends. So sewing 3 of the little minis together, and then we have a row of 3, and we'll have 3 rows, and then we'll sew those together. So I'm going to need a very long piece of yarn for this. I normally cut a piece off that's about 4 or 5 times the length of the project that I'm working on there, the hot pad, and it's just easier rather than cutting short pieces and having to weave in lots more ends. I try and keep it all in one piece, and I'll show you that as I go. I've already had enough loose ends to tie in. I don't want any more. So just pulling that through on my needle, and what I do to start with is I weave it through the back, so I've got a starting point. Then take 2 of the squares. I want where I've done the slip stitch, I want that on the inside of the pad. I don't want it on the outside. So I'll weave the yarn at the back there so that I'm at the corner and the side that I'm stitching. So that's the corner I'm going to start with. This is the side that I'm going to start with to hide that slip stitch. So there's my 2 chain. I'm going to sew into each of these double crochets here. Excuse me. So I'll need to make sure that I count as I go as well, so that I'm not missing any, and then I'll sew into the last chain stitch here. So you'll have 2 chain stitches in the corner, but we only need 1 on each corner, and then 8 of the back loops here. So we're only going to work into the back loops. So grab your square, right sides together, so put the good sides together, and make sure that you've got your finished edge work together as well. So you're sewing your finished edges together. So just locating the back loop. I've got 2 chain stitches here, but I want this one and I want the back loop here. So just pulling my yarn through, and it is as simple as working from back to front. So just locating the back loop of the slip stitch that I made to finish the round, and the back loop on the other square here. Again, putting your needle in from front to back and just pulling up. Give it a little bit of a tug, but don't pull too tightly. Okay, so again, locating the back loop of that V-stitch and the back loop of the V-stitch on the other side, and doing that all the way across. You can crochet these together as well if you wish, but I quite like the flat seam that this provides, and I don't want a sort of a bumpy edge. Sometimes depending on the crochet stitch you use, it can leave a bumpy edge when you crochet them together, and I want my hot pad to be quite flat. Remembering cotton obviously is the best material for this as well. You don't want to be using acrylic because acrylic burns with heat. So again, I'm just making sure I pick up each of the pieces of yarn. You can see close up how quite separate they are on this cotton yarn. It's not a tight woven yarn. Oh, missed a bit, there we go. So just coming to the last couple of stitches here. That's the last double crochet, and then we've got our 2 chain stitches in the corner, and just like we started, we only want one, and we want the one that's closest to the edge that we're working on. We don't want the one that's further apart or further away. So the back loop of that chain stitch and the back loop of the chain stitch on the other side. There we go, all done. Okay, there we have it. It's quite a flat seam that you can see here, and the slip stitched edges when we finish the crochet, the granny squares are sewn together. So you'll grab your next square and you'll make sure that your edges, again your finished edges, match up. Now I want to weave my yarn through here. I'm not going to cut it off. I don't want another loose end to sew in. I'm weaving it into the back so that I'm ready at the corner where I want to sew the next square. Let's not pull that too tight. We don't want that to happen. Just straighten that out so it's nice and flat. And I'm going to bring the yarn up to the back of the first chain stitch, and I'll be ready then to start sewing on my next square. So just bring that up the back stitch there, and then right sides together again. Again with that where we finished off and we slip stitched across to end the round, I want to sew over that. I don't want that on my outside edge. I'm going to sew over it so that we don't see it. So I'm going to locate the first chain stitch there and just insert into the back loop, and you repeat the sewing process all over again. Okay, just finishing off that last stitch. There's our 3 together, and I'm going to just weave the yarn through the back again so that my needle is in the corner ready to sew a strip of 3 to this corner. So again, I'm not cutting off the yarn, I'm just going to weave it through the back there, ready for sewing each of the edges. So that's those 3 done. I'll need to do another 3, and once I've done all of those, finish sewing those short ends together, I'll have 3 rows of 3. There we go. So we want to obviously make sure that the center square that I've got as a dual color square, I need to make sure that stays in the center. So I'm going to grab the first 2 strips. Apologies, I've just gone off camera. I'm just lining these up just to make sure that they're relatively even. Here we go. So I weaved the yarn in the back of the granny square, if you remember. So I'm at the top of the chain stitch here at the back, and these are the back loops of the double crochets that I want to go into. I'm just locating here my first, that's the second one, I want the first chain stitch, that one there, and then each of these loops are my double crochets that I want to go into. Obviously I want the back loops. So I'll just go into that top chain stitch here, come up through the back, and then locate the back stitch of the chain. There we go, on the other side, and you're repeating the sewing process all the way down the side, matching each of those up, matching each of these double crochets, and selecting not the front loop but selecting this back loop here. When you come to the corner, there will be an unworked chain stitch. So you will grab the unworked chain stitch and sew that one together. So now we have both of those chain stitches sewn. And on the other corner, it'll be the other chain stitch that wasn't sewn together previously. So you'll sew that together. Just trying to match these up and make sure I'm in the right loop here. There we go. Almost sewed the wrong loop together. That's it there. And continue sewing all the back loops together. And the chain loops together. Here we go, coming up to the end here. This is the last stitches. Then my last chain stitch here, which is right on the end. So it'll just be the one chain stitch I'm sewing off here. And there we have it. That's 2 sides together. Nice and flat. There we go, nice and tidy. And obviously the center square where I've got the dual colour, the double colours, will need to stay in the middle. So I need to make sure that when I place this one down, I'm actually placing it, sewing those 2 edges together. That's it, like that. Okay, and then repeat the process for sewing. My end is on the wrong side as well. As you can see here, I want it on the other corner. So that corner's no good. I want it on this corner here. So I'm going to weave the yarn through the back again, like I have done in the past with the other squares. So I'll just thread my needle up again. just weave that through to the edge that I'm going to be starting from. So quite simple, but you know, it just saves you having to cut yarns and then weave small pieces of yarn through later on. I'm all for trying to keep things simple. There we go. So just repeat the process. Sew your last side, and once you've done that, we'll get ready to start our border. The border will be in 2 stages. So it's a nice frilly little border. Very simple to make though, but it just finishes the edge of your pot holder off quite nicely. And you'll see we've got a loop there. Sometimes on my pot holders I won't have a loop because they're just on my kitchen side, but other times I might want to put them away, hang them up in the cupboard and put them away. So we'll make a chain loop on there as well, so that it's a bit more practical, a bit more versatile. What I want to do before we start the border is just go through the maths with you though, because you might want a slightly bigger pot holder. We've got 3 squares across the top of the pot holder, so I'm going to just draw those in. It helps me visualize how many stitches I've got and what that looks like then when I go to add the border. So just drawing in my corners, I've got the 2 double crochets, 2 chain and 2 double crochets for each of the corners. That's on my first square. Same again on the second square, and just drawing those in. I'm going to keep the border really simple, but it still helps to know exactly how many stitches you're working with and whether or not you might have to add some additional stitches or maybe even take some away and decrease. So as you can see there, I've drawn in each of the corners with the 2 double crochet, 2 chain, 2 double crochet, but then we have the double crochets along the side. Now there's 8 altogether. We've sewn up these sides here, so I'm not worried about those. I'm just worried about the top ones here. So you've got corner spaces for your 3rd square here, you've got your corner spaces for the second one, and you've got same again, the corner spaces for the first. I'm going to draw in the additional 4. I know we have 8 double crochets along the line, along the top edge, but remember 2 in each corner are for the corners, so there's a total of 8 altogether. So I have 8 for the first square, 8 for the second square, and 8 for the third square. So you could do this yourself very easily. If you were making a bigger hot pad and you had a 4x4 hot pad for a bigger saucepan or a bigger pan, then drawing all of this in helps. What I'm going to do in my corner, I think, is just something really simple. I'm going to put 2 single crochets in here, a chain and 2 single crochets, and then work along here and put single crochets in here. And then I'll just put 2 single crochets like I've done on the edge. I'll put 2 single crochets in each of these 2 corners. I'm not going to worry about chains. And then I'm going to put single crochets in each of these. And then again, where these 2 corners meet, I'll put 2 single crochets in each corner. And then single crochets all along here. And then finish this corner off exactly the same as the other one. And obviously I'll continue to work down into the next square here with single crochets. But up here, I want the same as the opposite corner. I want 2 single crochet, a chain, and 2 single crochet. If you did this with 4 squares, for example, it would be exactly the same, but you're adding more stitches in. So I have 2 on the edge that I'm working, and then 8, and then 4 in the corners, and then 8, and then 4 in each of those corners, and then 8, and then 2 more on the edge here. So if I count all of those, I'm not worried about the side. If I count all of the top edges together, I should have 36. It should be a 3, 36. I missed 10. So I will have on that top edge, I will have 36 single crochet by the time I finished, starting at the corner point. So let's begin. So there's my 9 squares all sewn together quite nicely. Weaved my ends in at the beginning anyway, and I'm going to use my contrast colour that I have for the middle granny square there. So I'm going to start my first part of the border in this contrast colour. All I need to do is start in the corner. It's easy just to start in a corner stitch, doesn't matter which corner, and then we're going to work along each of these stitches along here, the corners as well, and then each of these stitches and into these corners, into that one there, and into each of these and into the last corner. So as per our written plan, I'll only do part of the corner here though, so I'll just slip that yarn onto the project. Then I'm going to chain 1. That doesn't count as anything just yet, and I'll finish off the edge later, but I want 2 single crochets, and that will be one side. So that's just one side of my corner. So that's my first single crochet. Then I want another single crochet into that side, and then I can begin working into the tops of the double crochets here. I'm just going to pull that over, because again that first stitch is quite close to the corner there. So single crochet into the first. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, oops, just pull out a bit more yarn, and 8, and then we reach our first corner, and to keep that line fairly straight, I'm just going to put 2 double crochets in here. I'm not going to worry about that, so I'll go into the corner space here with 2 single crochet. That's the second one, and shoot straight over where we sewed into the next corner and put 2 in that corner, and then carry on with single crochets along the next square. So there'll be 8 double crochets to work into here, so we will have 8 single crochets, and as per the plan where you drew in the stitches, you will have 36 along this edge. But remember, that's 36 just along the edge, including the corner. The other 2 stitches of the corner will be for the next edge. So 2 single crochets again straight into our corner. We're skipping over the sewn edge. Just grab out a bit more yarn. So 2 single crochets in here, and then 8 single crochets across here. Again, just pulling that stitch across a little, the stitches over a bit so I can see that first double crochet. Now we planned to have 2 single crochets, a chain, and 2 single crochets into the corner. So that's what we're going to do now. Working in here, we want 1, 2 single crochet, chain 1, and now we're on the other edge. So there's 2 single crochet in here, and then 8 single crochet all along the side, 2 in the corners, and so on and so forth. Okay, all the way around. And at the end, I'll tell you exactly what I finished off doing here. it'll be the 2 single crochet, chain 1, 2 single crochet. I'll meet you back at the beginning once we've worked all the way around. Corners exactly the same. In here, 2 single crochet, 1 chain, 2 single crochet, and then single crochet down the end. So we're back at the beginning. I actually made 2 single crochets, a chain stitch, and then I slip stitched into this first single crochet. Now we want to start the second round. So chain 3, then we're going to skip our first single crochet there, and then we're going to work into the second one. So we're going to skip that one there, we're going to work into the second one. So we're going to single crochet in here. So basically we've just anchored down our 3 chains and created a little loop. Now we're going to make another one. So we're going to start again, single crochet into the next stitch, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, then we're going to skip a stitch and work a single crochet into the next stitch, and again that anchors down your 3 chains, making a little loop on the edge of your work. Then we're going to single crochet to start another one, single crochet again, chain 3, skip a stitch, skip that stitch, and then single crochet into this stitch here, the next one along, and that anchors down your 3rd loop. So you've got 3 along the side already, and you repeat that process. So start again with the next loop, single crochet, chain 3, skip a stitch, and then anchor your chains down by making a single crochet into the next stitch. So hopefully you'll see how that works. And because we've put a single crochet border all the way along the sides, you don't have to worry about these corners. You're just working over them as per normal with skip a stitch and then single crochet in to the next stitch. So actually sometimes creating that single crochet border is a really good setup, a good start for any other borders, any other stitches that you work. So I'm just going to repeat this process all the way along into the next corner. Chain 3, skip that one, and then work into the next stitch. Okay, we're coming up to the end here, and we're at our corner. And because we planned it out on paper, this works perfectly. We counted the stitches in, so our last loop finishes right on the edge into that last single crochet there. Then we have our chain 1 corner. It's very small, but there's our chain 1 corner in there. So we're going to single crochet in there, going to chain 3, and we're going to single crochet into the same space. So that one's just slightly different. We're not skipping anything. We're single crocheting, chain 3, single crochet all into that corner. Then we start again with our next loop. Single crochet, chain 3, skip a stitch, and then single crochet into the next stitch, and we repeat the process. So you want to do that all the way around till you get to the beginning, and that's what you'll end up with. That's really cute, and it's a really practical idea to have in the kitchen. You can make any colours to fit the colour of your kitchen as well, and make great gifts. Really good with Mother's Day coming up as well, and birthdays and holidays and things like that. It makes really, really good gifts. So if you've enjoyed this video, remember to click the links for the blanket as well, because remember, this little granny square can be made bigger for blankets and what have you. So click the links and have a look at those. Subscribe so you don't miss out on any other videos. Give us a thumbs up, and like the page. Please share it with other people if you think that they will benefit from it. Sharing is caring after all, and I will look forward to seeing you again in the next video. Thank you.